This one, we're not going to give a pick, but I do want to give a bit of a preview here for the game I'll be at. Big noon Saturday. Gus, Ginny, and I have the call as Michigan hosts Wisconsin in the Big House. Michigan looking to build off of that win over Nebraska and looking to just continue to build and mature with what is right now a fairly young team, namely at quarterback with Bryce Underwood. I think that win against Nebraska on the road was really big for that team. And candidly, they probably dominated that game more than what the scoreboard indicated with a late score before half, kind of a Hail Mary situation from Nebraska, a late score from Nebraska as well. So the 30-27 margin wasn't really indicative of the game that you watched on film, right? However, it's a good win on the road against a team in Nebraska that I think is a lot better than people think that they are at this point. And that should be a building block for this Michigan team, in particular with all of their youth that they've got. They obviously had that Oklahoma loss, but they're building off of that. They've changed philosophically because of that loss. What we're seeing now is the young quarterback, Bryce Underwood, that has been freed up to play a little bit looser and use his legs. And that's been a huge point of Michigan's success over the last couple of games, whether it was Central Michigan or against Nebraska, is the ability of Bryce Underwood to use his legs. This guy is an absolute threat with his legs. Now, it doesn't mean that he's not a good thrower of the football. He does need to become a better passer of the football. Those two things are different. But the fact that he is now kind of unleashed to run is a real threat for opposing defenses. In fact, you know, when you talk with opposing defensive coordinators, they'll tell you that that's the thing that scares them the most. Now, Nebraska didn't honor that as much, and they did not defend that as well. And because of that, Underwood really hurt them with the few runs that he made. One a long touchdown run that you're watching on YouTube. He got a couple of first down runs. So this element of the Michigan team is a development from what we saw when they went on the road and lost in Norman to Oklahoma. They're a terrific run team in general. The element of the quarterback helps that, but even without Underwood running the ball, Justice Haynes has been absolutely fantastic and electric. He has been a home run hitter. They already have, I believe it's 4 rushes of over 50 yards or more. So the explosive run game is there from Michigan, and they've been really good in the trenches, even with some injuries. They've lost a couple of guards, had other guys come in there, and they continue to play well. Michigan's run game is going to get tested this week because what people don't know about Wisconsin, this Wisconsin team that has struggled so far early in the season, they actually have one great area of their team, like truly great area of their team, and that's rush defense. They're actually at this point right now the number 1 rush defense in America, and that's going to be leaned on this week in particular as they face a Michigan team that has to run the football to establish their rhythm, to establish their philosophy, and allow Underwood to throw on schedule. You know, I always talk about as a quarterback and as an offense, you would much rather throw the football because you want to versus when you have to. And this run defense from Wisconsin is going to try to force Michigan into a situation where they're throwing the football because they have to, that they're off schedule, that they can't run the football. That's the matchup that I'm most excited to watch. On the opposing side, this Michigan defense is starting to get their legs back a little bit. In fact, a huge addition to that defense early in this season has been Rod Moore has been back on the field in the last game. And at safety, they need his leadership. They need his veteran presence because that's the youngest, most youthful area of their team. They're pretty good up front. They're rotating a lot of guys, and they're facing a Wisconsin offense that has struggled mightily. Billy Edwards is their starting quarterback at Wisconsin, but he has been banged up. Transferred in. They thought he would be the guy. He's been banged up, and they're trying to get him back. We'll see if he's going to be healthy in this one. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get back, but he tried it a couple of weeks ago, and he had to leave that game against Maryland. He's got a knee issue that stems back from week 1. They just can't stay healthy at quarterback over the last couple of years, and it's really hampered Luke Fickell's ability to kind of turn this program around. Now, they're also changing offensive philosophies. They went air raid when Fickell first got to Wisconsin. I didn't love that philosophy because that's just such a departure from what Wisconsin had been. Now, Jeff Grimes comes in as their new offensive coordinator, and he's very much more in the mold of what you would expect from a Wisconsin offensive coordinator. They're going to try to develop this offensive line, get a run run game going and make up for what has been a lot of quarterback injuries over the last couple of years. So Michigan's defense will be facing that offense on Saturday. And again, Gus, Ginny, and I will be there. Big Noon Kickoff will be there. Can't wait to see Underwood in person for the first time. All right, let's get into some of these matchups. The huge rivalry game down in the Sunshine State. Miami, 4.5-point favorites on the road against Florida State. Now, this game loses a little bit of its luster because of Florida State's loss last week. In that weeknight game, Friday night, they lost at Virginia. And again, classic trap game. If you have not listened to Wednesday's show, I define trap game, talk about trap games. That was a classic trap game. Florida State was on the road against a decent, not great opponent a week before a rivalry game, and they went down. It happened to be a weeknight game where they were on the road as well. That's where teams generally go to die. So they're coming off of that loss to Virginia, or else this wouldn't assuredly would have been a top 10 matchup and one that we were all like really amped up about. Lost a little bit of its luster, but still should be a fantastic game, and the line suggests that. Miami being only 4.5-point favorites should tell you what Vegas thinks about both of these teams and what this environment and game could look like. While Florida State was losing to Virginia, and yes, they get an extra day of rest because that was a Friday night game, but guess what? Miami's coming off of a bye. So they've been directly focused on this Seminoles team for 2 weeks. And Mario Cristobal and that defense more in particular has gotten to game plan against Florida State and that unique style of offense with Gus Malzahn as the offensive coordinator and Tommy Castellanos as their quarterback. So this great Miami defense with, I think, the most impactful defender of the season so far, Ruben Bain, has gotten to completely focus on Florida State for 2 weeks. I think their game plan should be excellent. It really should. And this is a defense that I believe could be as good as any in college football. In fact, I think the 3 best defenses in college football right now are Ohio State, Texas, and Miami. All right, these 3 defenses are incredible. Now, what goes along with that for Miami is the fact that their offensive line is also very good and winning the line of scrimmage. In fact, if you look at Carson Beck, their quarterback, he has been the least pressured quarterback in the country so far. So protecting a veteran quarterback, who, by the way, is coming off that elbow injury, but their offense, while they weren't great against Florida, Florida is still a pretty good defensive team, and they got the job done. They were able to run the football when they needed to late in that game, just tiring out the Florida defense. So I like Miami a lot. And Florida State is coming off of this loss. Yes, they'll be at home. The line isn't necessarily surprising, but I do like Miami in this game. The Miami defensive line is excellent, and they're athletic and they're long and they can run. Well, what do you need to stop the Gus Malzahn quarterback-centric run game for Florida State? You need a great, athletic, fast defensive line, and that's exactly what the Hurricanes have. Bit of a challenge, obviously. Florida State's number 2 in the country running the football. Miami, though, yet to allow 100 yards rushing, and that even includes Notre Dame, and we see what Notre Dame is doing offensively with Jeremiah Love. Miami has won 4 of their last 5 trips to Tallahassee. I've got Miami covering the 4.5. I think they win this ball game in a good one, but they win it 27-20. I'm gonna give those 4.5, and I'm gonna take Miami, and I think Miami is an excellent team. Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.